Hey everyone, Avros here, back again with the Final Fantasy 12 game challenge and another episode of Final Fantasy 5. So, Avros and Krell have actually snuck away from Tycoon Castle here in the start of this episode and going to find Boko here in this cave. And Krell's able to talk to the Chocobo as well. Avros is a bit surprised despite the fact, as we've covered previously, she does seem to be telepathic in some regards. So it's a bit interesting here that he's so shocked that she's able to talk to the Chocobo. And Boko introduces his wife, as they put it here, Coco, which I don't know much about Chocobo mating habits, but that seems a bit weird to me that they would take wives specifically. And they ask for Boko's help to travel around the continent, and Boko's wife Coco is pregnant, so they say they'll make sure that Boko comes back safely, so that they don't grow up without a father. And on their journeys, they fall down this hole here, and Avros tries to blame Boko for falling into the hole, and Boko isn't too happy with that, and you know, the hole opened up underneath his feet. We've seen him jump holes that size before, but guess there was nothing he could do about this one, when suddenly they're attacked by the antlion boss that lives in the bottom of this collapsed-in cave that we've ended up in here. So, this fight's a bit sped up. It's not a particularly interesting fight, technique-wise. It can be a very difficult fight if you're not prepared for this two-man party you're stuck with, so the sort of Galif Kryle party member along with Avros. If you're not setting up your party to have the ability to use restorative abilities of some nature, whether it's blue magic or white magic or summons, then this could be a very difficult fight and take quite a while. This did take a bit of time for me because I didn't quite set up Avros properly here with some of the blue magic, and probably could have taken advantage of some of this a bit earlier with stuff like Off Guard reduces defense, and Aqua Breath, which is very potent against desert-based enemies like the Antlion, so getting some good 700 hits in there with Aqua Breath. And I did some just regular melee attacks with Kryle, which wasn't a best option there, when I should have just been exploiting summon abilities, stuff like Shiva, or one that I hadn't used yet, Sylph, which heals both party members and does some damage to the Antlion there. So this episode's going to be an interesting one. There's a lot of plot-related stuff that happens very early on in this segment of the game that we need to deal with before we can really get on to sort of the meat of the story. So, X-Death has been taken care of, and we're back in the original world that Avros is from, trying to work out just what exactly happened when X-Death died. So, he was planning to return the world back to what it once originally was, but we're not entirely sure what that means at this point. So, just trying to make sure that we get through these boss fights and these encounters and deal with our two-man party here. So, the Antlion being very annoying here, using the ability Discord, which halves the effective level of people in combat, which really does reduce their damage output. And eventually the Antlion does run away, as it's been driven away. And now we're stuck down here, so we have to figure out a way out. So, as you can see, there's no exit. So, again, it's not one of those situations we have to wait for a little while, and a rope appears. So, Avros tries to get on the rope, and it just keeps getting pulled away from him. So, someone's pulling some sort of cruel joke, but Avros is going to use Boko to try and get the height to grab it, which doesn't quite work. And the person up above with the rope says, you know, don't pull anything like this again, admit that you're wrong, and I'll help you up. So, he tells Boko to go up first, and then the rope comes back down for Avros and Kryle to escape, and they climb up it themselves and find Boko up above the hole and Faris. And it turns out Faris noticed we were gone and has decided to follow Kryle and Avros to find out where exactly it is they've decided to run away from, and asked who it was that decided to maroon her back there, and they don't really admit who it is. And Faris says, not a cutout for the princess life, didn't want to live in a castle, so decided to follow you guys and see what was going on. So Faris has joined the party here and is going to follow us along as we go. And Kryle's not too happy. She's got a splinter, and says she'll be okay, and Faris has joined the party. So, moving on, we go and find this weird cave here that looks familiar, and it turns out Guido's here now as well. So, it wasn't just us that were returned to this world, but other people as well. And he mentions that the merging of the two worlds sent everything topsy-turvy, and Avros is really confused by this. He says, what do you mean, two worlds merging? And Guido goes on now to explain a legend. 1,000 years ago, Avros' world and Galuf/Kral's world were the same world, and they were split apart to seal the Void. And the Void was a terrible thing, and there was a ancient evil presence back 1,000 years ago called Enor that was trying to harness the power of the Void, and great warriors fought Enor with the 12 legendary weapons, and weren't entirely able to defeat him in the Void, but in the end split all of the 4-element crystals in two, and separated the world into two halves, sealing the Void and stopping it from destroying everything. And that's what Exdeath was trying to do, was destroy all the crystals and merge the worlds back together to return everything to the Void. And he's not actually dead, as it turns out. He sealed his power away into a tiny splinter. As we know, he's from a tree, so has some tree-based powers there, obviously. And he merged the two worlds together because he needed to break the crystals to do so to unlock the power of the Void. And his first action is to open up the interdimensional rift of the Void over the top of a castle there. And the 1,000-year-old power of the Void is his plan to destroy everything, basically, and return everything to the Void. So Avros has a moment of badassery there and kind of stands up against Exdeath and tries to stop him, and it turns out that the interdimensional rift that he opened up is over the top of Castle Tycoon, and you see Lena there trying to run away, and the castle's been destroyed, and there's just a massive hole in the ocean there now, and Exdeath basically says he's going to destroy the whole entire world and engulf everything with the power of the Void, and Avros manages to get back up and hold Faris from falling over, while Exdeath tries to destroy the party, only for a unlikely savior, Guido, to show up, and they have a very fast-moving battle, and Guido gets one of the more humorous lines of the game, saying, "Do you think I spent 7 centuries sitting around munching on pizza?" when Exdeath says he's a decent fighter. So Exdeath decides, well, you know what, let's just scatter you all to the winds with my power. I'm the most powerful being in existence now, so there's nothing you can do to stop me. And throws them flying away from where Boko was, away from where everything else was, and they help Guido get back on his feet one more time, and basically Guido says he doesn't have the full power of the Void yet, we need to stop him beforehand. And Guido reacts to somewhere nearby, which ends up being the Library of the Ancients, and says that there must be a book here somewhere that tells the people how to defeat Exdeath. And there's some scholars from Guido's half of the world and some scholars here from Avros' half of the world working together on a plan for how we'll actually defeat Exdeath. And turns out there's a giant conference table hidden on top of the stairway. And yeah, the two worlds are recombined, the scholars are convened for the plan here, and Avros basically says, well, we're going to stop Exdeath, and there's, you know, a admonishment from Guido here, as there's some extremely powerful enemies from the Void that will be coming to stop us, and Guido says, well, you know what? If we're going to stop them and you really want to fight, we're going to need the legendary weapons. And to find the legendary weapons and get them from the sealed castle, we're going to need the sealed tome, which is the two halves of the book from each side of the world. And it says that the weapons are sealed in Kuza Castle, and we'll need 4 tablets, along with the locations of each of those tablets, to get the legendary weapons unsealed. So basically 4 tablets, 12 weapons. We get 3... weapons per tablet, as well as it mentions a few other very important things, the ultimate black and white magics, Holy and Ultima, as well as the 2 ultimate summons, Leviathan and Bahamut, the King of Dragons. So basically, we get told to go to the Desert of Shifting Sands, which is right nearby, and find the pyramid in the middle, and unlock it with the tablet. So on our way there, we find the Guardian Tree has actually been moved over to this world as well, and that it's coming back to life along with the forest, and Kral laments that Galuf is gone, Faris laments Lena and King Tycoon, and we all have lost people at this point, and the three of us will need to stop X-Death now, because, as we know, Lena was more than likely destroyed in the interdimensional rift opening up over Tycoon Castle. So, here's a bit of an odd story beat here. So, in this town that exists on the other side of the desert, we find this weird guy who says, either we've been brave or lucky to make it this far. If we are brave, take the box on the left, which contains the Brave Blade, and if we've been lucky, to take the box on the right, which, you know, we can't get the weapon from in this run because we took the Brave Blade, but contains a weapon known as the Chicken Knife. Both these weapons are really good. The Brave Blade, as you'll see here, has 150 attack, but loses effectiveness if you ever run from battle, as well as increasing your strength by 5. So, the upside of the Brave Blade is, we've not run from any single combat throughout the game so far. It is now the most powerful sword in the game. So, this is the first stone tablet boss sort of thing to get into one of the hidden temples which contain where the stone tablets are. So we use the tome to activate these two gargoyles. This happens out the front of each of the sort of temples it contains one of the stone tablets, and these gargoyles seem like a real pushover when you see what I actually end up doing to them here, especially with dual cast. They are a massive pushover. But the biggest problem that you have with them is, if one of them is to die, and the other one doesn't at the same time, they will instantly res the other gargoyle with full health. And there's really nothing you can do about it other than do exactly what I did there and kill both at the same time, which enables the sealed tome to burn the page talking about the spirits sealed in the sands of old, which is this pyramid. Nothing interesting happens in this pyramid, and we make it to the end and find the tablet. No boss fight. No major conflict here other than the gargoyles, and the temple actually raises us up to stand on top of the ziggurat in the middle of the dungeon, desert, sorry, and on the tablet it is written, the King of Dragons Bahamut, and there's a peninsula here that is shaped like a dragon. We landed on that to find the energy that was all funneled into the middle of the world that allowed us to teleport to Gallus World. Looks like it was also containing this dragon here itself, which is Bahamut, who flies overhead and says, "I'll await you at North Mountain." At this point in the game, we have no chance of taking on Bahamut, so we won't be doing that until much later, but also we see an airship sailing towards where we are, and on our way to go and greet it, we hear a Windrake as we pass by the Guardian Tree again, only for the Windrake to come flying down, and it's Hiryu. So Hiryu is still here, and somehow Lena, running towards the top of the castle, manages to save herself and get aboard Hiryu the Windrake and fly her way here. Who wakes up and says, "This body is mine," and starts beating us all up, and X-Death shows up and tells us that it's Melusine, a evil sealed in the rift, and now that he's freed the rift, everything within it is his to command. So while he may not have the full power of the Void just yet, he is bringing some pretty bad enemies along with him. So X-Death then says he's going to go and deal with Guido, while we're stuck dealing with Melusine, and he opens up the rift above the Library of the Ancients. So I guess the only thing we've got to go on now is resolve the prophecy in the sealed tome, find the legendary weapons, and deal with X-Death himself. So X-Death shows up and says, yeah, soon he'll have the full power of the Void, and everything on Earth will tremble before him. Avros asks Lena to stop, and is unable to do so. So Hiryu actually attacks Lena, sacrificing himself to free the demon from her body, and now we have a 3-person boss fight. So Melusine is the first one of the demons of the Rift that we'll be fighting. There's quite a few of them, and they all have different interesting gimmicks. Melusine's sort of major one is that a lot of fire-based magics and a lot of magical attacks just in general are very, very potent against Melusine. She's actually really easy compared to some of the later boss fights we'll have, but still can be quite tricky as you're just not back at full strength with only 3 people in the party here. So a dual casting red mage with Faraga hitting for 8,000, quite up near the damage cap of 9,999. Definitely does the trick here in this fight. As you'll notice, Eraga there did nothing, as she is completely immune to aerial-based magics or air-based magics, and our best bet is just to resort to fire. So the best blue magic spell Avros has, which he used earlier, is that flamethrower, and Kryle there with the double summon Ifrit, not hitting anyone near as hard as that Faraga from Faris, who is at the moment a red mage black mage combination, so not actually using the time magic but taking advantage of high level black magic to really nail the damage there. And that's Melusine dealt with. Lena wakes up, she's been saved, and she managed to escape the void, so we're all okay. She's back in the party, we're back at full strength. So after a quick interlude to heal up, we go and get on the ship that sailed nearby, which it turns out is the airship, and turns out we can enter the void by going to the interdimensional rift over the top of Tycoon Castle. And Avros mentions, we're better off getting the 12 legendary weapons first, but at this point in the game, if you did go to Tycoon Castle, you would be completely able to just go into the void right now and fight Exdeath. But there's still more of this game to show off, so not going to do that just yet. We're going to go and get the weapons, as well as some of the ultimate summons and spells. But Exdeath decides, yeah, sick of this, we're going to destroy some more places on the world. So he destroys a few towns and some castles here, but makes some pretty bad mistakes in the targets that he picks. So he's getting rid of some of the towns and places we've been to at much lower level, as well as the Moogle Forest. So all of these areas have much lower level gear. None of the useful stuff that we could have access to later. And lastly, he destroys Avros's hometown, which, as it turns out, is a pretty big mistake. Avros was already pretty dedicated to taking out Exdeath in the first place before he destroyed Lix, and now Avros is completely incensed and angry and manages to fly the airship at an incredible speed, several times circumventing the entire Earth, as you see it passing by underneath the ground there. And yeah, so now that Exdeath's done that, Avros is extra motivated to deal with Exdeath and stop his reign of terror. So his flight ends up right over the top of where Lix once was, and now we're going to go and get some more things. So back in the pirate cave here, Faris says Sildra's still alive, and sees Sildra appear there in the water, but no one else can see Sildra there. So as I'll mention, Sildra is definitely dead, and the only person that can see her other than Faris is Kryle, who can see her soul, and says that Sildra wants to help out. So Sildra, having saved us multiple times already, and her soul appearing in the pirate cave now as we come back, turns into our next best summon. So Titan now is replaced. Sildra is literally the best summon we have access to right now. And we take the stone tablet here to the Cursed Castle, and we are able to release 3 of the legendary weapons. So we're going to start off with going around the room here. You can see there's all 12 of these weapons hidden in these stained glass style windows sort of things. And grab first and foremost the Rune Axe, a great weapon for blue mages, very good as well on berserkers. Relies on both the strength and magic stat to do a lot of damage, as well as using some of your MP there to get some extra damage. So the more MP the better. We'll also get Excalibur. As Lena does have that dual wield, she needs 2 extremely powerful swords, along with the Brave Blade and Excalibur. There's not too much more we're going to do with weapons with her. And the Magus Rod, which is a magical rod that can be held by any mage that will boost the power of all spell types. So some of the weapons we've had before, like Fire Rods or Ice Rods or the Mage Masher, boost specific spell types, or the Air Knife boosts air magic. The Magus Rod boosts everything. So what we see here are the remaining Demons of the Void, and Exdeath says, we're not allowed to get the legendary weapons, you guys need to go and deal with them. So he sends these 3 in specific out to defend the remaining tablets to stop us getting the rest of the weapons. And we take our airship here and fly over to Castle Baal, which is here as well, perfectly intact. So Baal is where Galuf and Kryle lived. This is Galuf's castle, named after his last name, Galf Baldesian, and this is the Castle of Baal. So there's a sealed door, as we just saw, in the basement, and after taking a detour, you can come in here and find Odin the Summon, who says he'll give you exactly 1 minute of combat time to defeat him, and if you don't take the summon of Odin out here on his horse Sleipnir, within that 1 minute, that's it. Fight's all over, and you're dead. So, this is a tricky fight. You really need to be prepared when you come in here with a quite powerful party, as Odin will ruin you, basically. He doesn't really do much within the minute that he gives you, and as you can see, if you're actually picking targets with your spells, the timer does pause under the active battle system, but if you don't deal with him within that 1 minute, that's it. Party's dead, start over, try again. He also does use his attack Zentetsuken, which hits for about 1,000 damage there, you can see on each target, and Lena kind of swung once there with the Brave Blade, and then swung the remaining number of times there with Rapid Fire into air, because Odin was already dead, and it needed to trigger the script for the end of the fight. So, perfectly prepared coming in, we defeated Odin, and got the summon for him, which is a summon that when you summon it into combat, so long as the enemies aren't immune to instant death attacks, it just kills them. It just ends the fight, everything's dead. Incredibly useful in certain situations, but, you know, unless you know what's death immune and what's not to those sort of attacks, can end up blowing up at your face and wasting your MP. So next up is a stop here in the Phantom Village. It's hidden inside a forest, and here is our last piano. So Avros has definitely mastered the piano. That was a much nicer piece of music than that very first piano we played, and as it says, everyone quakes in fear of our piano skills. This can be used now to go and learn the last bard song in the game, but for the last little bit of our storytelling roundup, we're just going to ride Boko up to the top of this waterfall here and obtain the magic lamp, which is a interesting item that allows you to use it, and it will summon the most powerful summon in the entire list of summons, even if you don't have it acquired, Bahamut, and then will slowly work its way down through the summon list until it gets to the very last one, which is Chocobo, and if you try and use it again, then the item will die and no longer be usable, but at any point in time you can come back to the waterfall and replenish its light, and it will reset back to summoning Bahamut again. So it can be very useful if you're planning not to use summoners at all for your run, and take advantage of that magic lamp. So that is it for this episode. We've covered a lot of storyline stuff. In the coming episodes, we will be just grabbing some of the tablets, as well as closing off the last few things of lore before we go and fight X-Death. So, thanks again for watching, and catch you in the next episode.